everybody, my name is Lily Leonard, and today we'll be talking about succulents and propagation. Many of you over the past few years may have heard people talk about succulents. Since about 2007, succulents have become a very popular household plant to use for decoration or just as a way of livening up the house. Succulent species such as aloe are also heavily used and discussed within the beauty industry, which we'll touch on a little bit later. If any of you are unfamiliar with what succulents are, I'll just give you a basic rundown. The name succulent comes from the Latin term succus, which means juice or sap. There are more than 50 families of succulents, and it's believed that they could have potentially began to form 115 years ago from an algal ancestor. So now, moving to today, arguably some of the most well-known succulents are aloe, agave, and cacti. Starting with aloe, one of the most well-known uses is for sunburn care, which you can get aloe in a little container just like this at a store and rub it on your sunburn, and ideally it helps treat it faster. Aloe is made from the species of aloe I have here, which is aloe vera. This is four of about 250 total species of aloe that are used to treat sunburn or for a beauty regimen or within dietary supplements. I also have a face mask here that has a really lovely picture of what the inside of aloe looks like, and this is just another beauty use for aloe vera. Now moving on to agave, which sadly I don't have a plant to show you. It's most well known for the production of tequila, and that species of agave is the blue agave. Now for cacti species, which right here I actually have a hedgehog cactus, they're most well known for their rigid exterior that typically have sort of prickly spikes going throughout it, which this one, if you touch it, they're really thin, almost as thin as hair, and when it gets within your finger, they're clear particles that you can only see if you hold it up to a light and you can see them sticking out, so you definitely don't want to mess with this guy. Now, when we're talking about succulents, it's important to talk about how they reproduce. This method is called propagation. Succulents can do this on their own terms, but people who have them as houseplants also tend to sort of speed up the process and make it happen on their own. So I'll be breaking down the steps of propagation through the use of my mini or dwarf jade, which I'm going to refer to as just a mini jade, but both names are accepted as the common name. And I have these four lovely plants right here and some in here. At the end of this video, I'm going to show you close-ups of what all of them look like, so in case you can't see it from where you are right now, you'll get to see it then. So here is just a regular leaf that was taken off of this plant about a day or two ago. There's no roots, there's no signs of growth, but the leaf is still pretty dense and squishy, just about the same texture as the leaves that are actively on the plant. Now, the next step in propagation comes about 2 to 3 weeks later, sometimes less if you're really lucky, which is when the leaf starts to root and you can actually see a new plant beginning to bud from the top. Again, I don't know if you can see it over there, but you'll get to see it in a few moments. Now moving on to the next mini jade, there is still a leaf attached, the mother leaf attached to it, and you can see two different new jades sprouting from it. This is when the jade starts to become bigger and begins to photosynthesize on its own. So eventually the mother leaf will shrivel off and it will just be the new plant. And when the mother leaf shrivels, the nutrients that's in the leaf transfers to the new mini jade in this case. And then here I have a relatively new jade propagation. It's about 8 months old. So that's about the difference. This is roughly 2 months old. This is about 8 months old. So this species actually grows pretty quickly, but other species can take up to 3 years to get this height, if they even ever reach that height. So just to give you sort of a general idea of how big the root system is within this, it covers almost the entire container. I actually just repotted this, so I know exactly where it's at. And again, this is the mother jade, which I have been propagating from, but the leaf that I have here naturally fell off when I was repotting it, so sometimes you just can't help that. This mother jade is about 4 years old, which here I'll put it a little bit closer to the camera so you can see the size. It hasn't grown too much since I've been propagating it. You can see a lot of bare spots, like right on this here, there's no leaves there, but typically when you take a leaf off, which you can see right here, there are new ones sprouting up, it'll begin to spread out rather than up, which is really fascinating. So next, I'll be talking about my hedgehog cactus again and the steps of propagation for this. So as I had previously mentioned, the hairs on this can be pretty abrasive, but when they're this size, they're not that bad. So I'm going to come up to the camera and just show you the root system that this self-propagated. So here you can see, if it'll focus, this is the little root. I'll do a little background. That started to stem from the plant, which I actually pulled from right there. And once that happens, you know that you can help out the cactus by taking off that blubble. So these, if they ever grow roots like that, I'm going to do the same thing. There's also 3 other ones that began to do that. So now I'm going to move the camera around as promised and show you the close-up of the succulents. So this is the first leaf that I talked about. You can see there's not really any growth anywhere on it. It pretty much looks like it just came right off of the mother jade, which it did just a few days ago. And then I move on to the second one that I talked about. And here you can see some pretty established roots right there. And you can see a well-developed stalk sort of coming in with just a few leaves emerging there. And then the next jade is the one that still has the mother leaf, which is right there, still attached. It's a few months old, it's grown pretty well, and it has 2 plants stemming from it. And then we move on to the 8-month-ish old jade propagation that's roughly 4 inches tall. So it's pretty big. It's definitely gotten a lot of growth. It's grown pretty even. And moving back to the mother jade, something I didn't talk about is actually how some of these branches are curving up. So this is what a succulent does when they're trying to access a light source. Recently, I haven't had good access for this fella, so it's been stretching a little bit, and you can see the growth that stems out from where I have previously picked off leaves. Aloe vera that I previously showed, so if you ever want to utilize it for sunburn treatment or for skincare, you just essentially rip off this leaf and split down the middle, and then the insides will look just like this beautifully demonstrated picture, which is pretty goopy, and it doesn't really have the green color like a lot of sunburn aloe gels have, but it's pretty clear, and it has a very distinct smell. Of a few more jades that I have, these are all of the jades I currently have with a few other succulent species demonstrated throughout. They're all about the same size. I started them about 2 weeks ago, and they've all rooted and they're doing pretty good.